Hello, White Sox fans. It is Crystal O'Keefe with episode 34 of Visiting Dugout, brought to you by Southside Sox, a part of Fans First Sports Network. Today, I have on the show the very wonderful and charming Jordan White. You might know Jordan from his previous long-running podcast, In the Deep, and several very thoughtful and thought-provoking articles on Pitcher List. So, Jordan, hello. Please feel free to add to that introduction because you do so many things.
I used to do so many things. I've stepped away from so much, and now I'm just a baseball fan again, which kind of feels nice. But no, yeah, formerly a writer and podcaster for Pitcher List, as Crystal so kindly mentioned. Two-time Fantasy Sports Writer Award nominee, which is kind of weird to say. And then, yeah, I mean, Brewers fan, more so a general baseball fan than a Brewers fan, but I do have a soft spot for the Brewers in my heart. So, yeah.
It's true. We have met at a Brewers game. It was a wonderful time.
Yes, we have to do another one of those sometime soon. I know it's. I've touted the idea of coming down to visit you for a Sox game, but I feel like we would get more enjoyment out of watching a Brewers game right now than a Sox game.
I have tried. Actually, I have successfully not been to guaranteed rate field this year.
Oh wow!
I have only seen the Sox on the road if I do see them at all.
Where did you see them?
I have now seen them in New York.
Okay.
I've seen them in Cincinnati. Honestly, I think I've seen the Mets and Pirates more this year than I've seen the White Sox.
Oh wow.
Yeah, in fact, I have seen the Mets more than the White Sox this
year.
Oh
yeah, you were in Milwaukee for one of the Mets games. I remember that. That's
yes,
when we saw each other too. You came to eat at my restaurant.
Yes, and then you got to meet Pete Alonso the next day, and
I did get to meet Pete Alonso, and I disappointed you by well, I mean, I made you happy, but also probably very much disappointed you by the fact that I got to meet him and you did not. But
it's okay. I saved that picture on my phone. It's actually your picture, your little picture for your text.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, they always say don't meet your heroes, but I'm kind of okay meeting my friends' heroes because Pete Alonso and his wife, both incredibly kind and nice people. So that was very good. Seal of approval for Pete.
And the Mets always get, they order from your restaurant when they're in town, which is
they do.
Really cool.
Yeah, they cater breakfast a lot from our restaurant. Same with the Reds. The Reds did it a couple times now too. So we've done both of them lately, which has been neat. So yeah.
You guys going. You're so cool.
Always.
All right. Well, we're here to talk about the Brewers, not Pete Alonso. Sadly, this is not Pete Alonso podcast. Maybe that's something I should do in the future. But yeah, so you and I both know the Central divisions are kind of the weakest.
It's a mid-off in both the AL and the NL, kind of, yeah.
But the Brewers are at least leading in the National League.
Yes, they're a game and a half up right now on both, I believe, the Cubs and the Reds.
Yes.
So
the Cubs have been really hot, and they're kind of climbing back with that whole 50 million runs in 3 days.
Yeah.
But the Brewers have maintained that lead for a bit. In fact, it wasn't until just recently that the Cubs really started to kind of climb back up there. So what's going on in Milwaukee right now with the Brewers?
So in Milwaukee right now, I feel like it's a good and kind of uplifting time just because we're now getting Brandon Woodruff back. Finally made his first start this past weekend, which he looked great. Obviously, it's always good to see him healthy after that long. I mean, it felt like such a long absence for him. Very excited to see him back in the rotation. I feel like there's some stability there in the rotation that we didn't have. Obviously, having the big three of him, Corbin Burnes, and Freddie Peralta back makes me much more comfortable and feel much more safe as a Brewers fan, sending starting pitchers out instead of I love what they did, and I'm glad that they could eat innings this year, but I would much rather not have Julio Teheran and Colin Ray pitching every fifth day for the Brewers. So I'm excited to have those three back and healthy, all ready to go. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot to be excited about on the pitching side of things and the defensive side of things. The offense still continues to scuffle. Seeing Corbin Burnes struggle to get run support, even though he pitches really, really well, is always I don't know. It's like death taxes in that, or three certainties in life. So I would love to see the offense click a little bit more. Obviously, there's been a lot of disappointments this year. I mean, a lot of people were really hoping that Rowdy Tellez would be better. He's been hurt. nagging injuries, not living up to what we expected him to be, which is a bummer. Just across the board, like a lot of really disappointing performances offensively. In general, I feel like there's optimism though right now with the Brewers. So I still feel good about their chances of winning the division. The two teams that are nipping at their heels are both very threatening in their own ways, though.
That's true. Although the Reds have kind of had a little cold streak. Again, they played the Cubs for most of that. And that's kind of my next point. Like, how do you extinguish the Cubs right now so that, throughout this month and throughout September, you guys are still in first and maybe more of a deficit for the Cubs and the Reds, more than a game and a half back right now.
Yeah, so we really don't have any divisional games until we play the Cubs at the end of the month. Yeah, I mean, we obviously we're starting a series against the Rockies as of today of this recording. White Sox this weekend, Dodgers, Rangers, Twins, Padres, and then finally the Cubs. I think we're kind of just hoping that the division kind of beats up on itself a little bit, trades games, like split series. No one really gains a whole lot of ground if everyone can kind of just spin their tires. And then once we get to those series, I mean, we have series against both the Cubs and the Pirates in late August, early September that I think are going to be really pivotal. That's pretty much all we're looking at. And then obviously everyone should just stay healthy. Fingers crossed. I mean, we're going to be getting hopefully Aaron Ashby back at some point near the end of the year. One of my favorite players. Yeah. Lots of help in terms of like bullpen arms, long relief arms, guys who can eat innings. It's going to be really exciting to see. I think between the starting rotation, the bullpen, and how strong they've been and how surprising they've been this year, particularly Hobie Milner and Yoel Payamps have both been incredible. I think that's been a really, really nice surprise. Obviously, after the Hader trade last year,
yes.
Who's gonna? Because Devin Williams was the 8th inning guy. You had Hader in the 9th. Williams moves up to the 9th. Who's going to fill like those 7th and 8th inning roles? Milner and Yoel Payamps have both filled those roles exceptionally well. Super happy about that. But I think it's mostly just like staying the course with the stellar defense. I think like by most metrics, the Brewers have the best defense in the league. They're up there in the top 3 in pretty much every major defensive metric. That plus the stellar pitching plus the bullpen is what's allowing them to stay at the top of the division. I'm hoping that remains the case. I'm hoping we see a nice little hot stretch, especially with all the younger guys that have gotten called up for the Brewers in terms of offense. Hopefully that'll put a shot into the team. But yeah, I think that's going to be the key to it, is basically just hoping that the rest of the division continues to beat up on each other and then just staying the course the rest of the way.
Yeah, and I mean that could very well happen because these hot streaks will come and go as is. So while I'm sure it was nice for Cubs fans to have that, that's never sustainable.
Yeah,
that many runs. That's just kind of crazy that they've made up their run differential just in 3 games.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty crazy. So like, and that, I don't know. I feel strange saying this because like it feels bad as a Brewers fan to kind of like draw parallels between the Brewers and the Cubs, but just like the general resurgence and like reclamation of both Christian Yelich and Cody Bellinger in the same season, the former MVPs who were battling against each other for so long, were kind of like running parallel to each other back in like 2018, 2019, the subsequent like falling off, quote unquote, of both of them. And now Bellinger finding his form again and playing out of his mind. He's been incredible lately. Yeah. And then Yelich, not obviously like he's always going to be held up to the standard of quote unquote standard, because it's not standard what he did in 2018 and 2019. He was incredible. But he's been obviously like on one of the worst offenses in the league. He's still a leadoff man who's probably going to score 100 runs, and he's getting on base at an absurd clip still. Both of them have been excellent. So I think that's another kind of like cool little storyline here, is seeing those two now in the same division, both kind of like rising back up in relevancy and reputation. So I think that's going to be the fun thing to watch for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to not enjoy watching Cody doing what he's doing as someone who does not like the Cubs and definitely would pick the Brewers over the Cubs any day. It's admittedly very fun to see that resurgence. And obviously, I mean, we all love to see what Christian does. He's been so much fun to watch, and it had been such a bummer the last 2 years to kind of see some droughts and see some no longer like vintage Yelich. So
Exactly.
it's fun to
Yeah.
watch both of them do it right now.
Absolutely. And like that's the thing with both of those guys. It wasn't for lack of effort, right? You could tell that they were struggling and sitting there trying, like Yelich was spinning his tires trying to figure it out. And even when he was bad, he was still walking at like he still gets on base at a great rate. Like he still is like an above league average hitter because of how much he would get on base. And he was still, when he was impacting the ball, he was hitting it very, very hard. It's just something wasn't quite there. And he had a change. I believe it was like his setup. He was doing more of a toe tap instead of an actual stride, which helped him kind of get his timing down again this year, which I think obviously helped. Mechanically, I can't speak to any changes with Bellinger's swing, but I do know that Yelich focused on that in his setup before swinging. So, yeah, I don't know. It's very exciting to see both of them doing that, even though I would like to see the Cubs fail inherently for who I am as a person. But
totally, this is a White Sox podcast.
I'm in a safe space. I understand. Yeah.
You're supposed to say that. So do you have a MVP candidate for this team?
Like, for the Brewers.
Yeah, for the Brewers.
So offensively, I mean, it's pretty clearly got to be Yelich. I don't think there's anyone else that really fits that mold that's kind of doing a little bit of everything. And I mean, he's a prototypical, like, ideal leadoff hitter. He works a ton of walks. He's got speed. He can steal bags. I mean, he's leading the team in both on base percentage and stolen bases, as well as runs scored. He's probably, again, they are, I believe, by WRC plus, I think 26th in the league in terms of offenses, and he's still in line to score 100 runs. I mean, it just kind of speaks to how good he is, that he's still able to score that much when the people behind him truly are not performing up to what we would expect them to. So it's pretty clearly that that's my offensive MVP. From a pitching perspective, I know this is going to sound weird because, like, I could sit there and I could talk about Freddie Peralta all day. I could talk about Corbin Burns all day. I could talk about Devin Williams all day. We expect them to be good. Mm-hmm. The guy that I really want to highlight is Yoel Payamps. From a pitching perspective, again, like I kind of said before with the Hader trade, Devin Williams stepping into the ninth inning role officially, there was questions about who was going to bridge that gap between the starters and when Devin Williams could close down a game. I don't think any of us expected, like, the throw-in piece from the William Contreras trade, Yoel Payamps, to step into like that eighth inning role. He's been incredible. He's throwing harder than he ever has in his career. He's throwing his slider the most that he ever has in his career. His whiff rates and his put away rates on all, like, both his four seam and slider have gone through the roof. Just so much to be excited about. And I think part of that is like the pitching development for the Brewers, but also the catcher development. And the people that he is working with behind the dish have probably made him much better as well. It also helps that he's now striking out north of 10 batters per 9 innings pitched for the first time in his career and walking a career low number of hitters. So just everything has been on the up and up in the underlying data with Payamps. He's definitely my MVP.
Yeah, that's good. We didn't get a ton of Twitter questions, but we do have some very good ones. And I have also just added my own. I'm going to start off with the one I did just add recently that is my favorite. What is it like to have Mark Canha's ass in the lineup now? Because I feel like we are both ass appreciators.
We are. Yeah. I mean, also, Mark Canha says gay rights.
Yes. Yes.
It's fantastic. I mean, that was probably the most exciting thing for me, was the fact that we have like a very vocal LGBTQ supporter in the Brewers lineup on a semi-regular basis. I feel like he's just probably a really, really good clubhouse guy. Versatile for sure, which helps. He can play first base. He can play outfield. Obviously, we've had first baseman, again, like I noted about Rowdy Tellez, had been struggling this year. So having someone like Canha that you can slot into the lineup has been fantastic. But also, the dumper is great for sure.
We love this. And that leads into, the next question someone did have. Did any of the moves made at the trade deadline make the Brewers any better?
I think mostly from a versatility standpoint, like I kind of noted with Canha, I feel like that's probably the most notable one. The Brewers are really, really good. And this is like a Matt Arnold, David Stern special. They're really, really, really good at getting better in the margins. And they've done that kind of through trial and error throughout the year. Like you see them pick up guys like Darren Ruff, who was on the team for a little bit, Luke Voigt at the start of the season. Like they're not going out to spend a bunch of money. They're not going to get like the primo like trade target or free agent usually in the offseason. They're not going to sign someone to like a hundreds of $1,000,000 contract. They're going to find guys. It's very Moneyball is the best way I can describe it. And most simply, I think that Canna's probably going to be the most impactful of anyone. And then there's some interesting arms that they got in the trade deadline that I'm curious to see how they develop and deploy them. But I would anticipate that we're more likely to see some of the younger guys who are still in the minors maybe get calls as far as bullpen help. I'm personally hoping that the Brewers are going to be in the hunt and desperate enough that they're going to call up Jacob Misiorowski, who has ascended into AA now in the minors and has looked pretty decent as of late, to hopefully make some relief appearances later in the season or like early in the postseason. I would love to see something like that. I feel like though Canna is probably the main one that I would key in on as being like a key pickup for them right before the trade deadline, because I think he's going to play meaningful innings.
The Mets fan in me was very sad
about
that going down, but then I realized, wait, Milwaukee is way closer to me than New York.
So, yeah, you can see him anytime you want.
Yeah, I could that's a pretty easy and quick drive up there to watch him, which is worth it, times 100. Let's see, Janice, in her Seinfeld voice, really wants to know what the deal is with Willie right now.
So since they fired Andy Haynes, I just saw a tweet about this. He's been hitting like 210, 220. He has been hitting the ball very well. Prior to Andy Haynes getting let go, he was hitting like north of 270, 280. He was looking very, very good. I don't know what Willie's deal is right now. I think that we see Willie go through phases like this, regardless of who his hitting coach is. He goes through slumps. He figures it out. He's still going to occasionally run into a ball and hit with a decent amount of power, have a decent amount of pop. And the thing for me is, like, again, I'm going to key back in on this, and this is why the Brewers, I think, are at the top of the division. It's going to be the defense. I think his defense is still very, very strong. He's looked good at shortstop this year, paired with Bryce Terang up the middle. I think that's a really, really formidable middle infield defensive duo. So I think that's where Willie's value mostly comes in, is mostly in his glove and in his arm. And obviously, like, clubhouse leadership, like the vibes are always immaculate when Willie Adames is involved. Like, I genuinely, there's so many guys on the Brewers that it's like Willie Adames, and then you see guys like Joey Weimer, the young guys, where while they struggle at the plate and they may be really, really frustrating at times, you can tell that they're having so much fun playing the game and that they're keeping the vibes light in the clubhouse. And I think that makes it a lot more fun and a lot more easy to get through the struggling times, especially for the guys on the team too, because they're keeping a positive attitude.
Yeah, and that's always key. We see just how well that's worked for the Orioles this year. I mean,
yeah,
they're not the ones struggling, but like those vibes there are just
incredible,
top notch. They're having way too much fun, and it's showing on and off the field how, a great culture and a great clubhouse, which I'm not even going to dive into right now with the White Sox. That is painful. But yeah, it shows that those things really do matter in the long run. So
absolutely. Yeah. The Orioles, I mean, it spills over into the stands. Like, I see the guys, Mr. Splash or whatever it is, with the squirt gun out in the outfield bleachers. Like, all of that just looks so fun. Like, I want to go to Baltimore for a game. Luckily, we know someone there now, so that helps.
This is true.
Yeah. Looks so fun.
Of them. Another one. When is Keston going to get his shot?
Keston Hiura. I don't know if there is room to give Keston Hiura another shot, because I don't know where you put him. Mm-hmm. I feel like if I have not looked at Keston Hiura's minor league stats. I know he's impacted the ball decently well this year, but I would venture a guess in saying that if I looked at his strikeout rates in AAA, they are probably still quite high. And that's probably why you will not see Keston Hiura. Like, he'll be on the postseason roster, like the 40-man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, between like all of the younger guys who are going to be getting shots before him, like Terang's going to be at second base. Keston's not going to play second. They're not going to shove Keston in the outfield. They have so many good young outfielders. They're not going to put him at DH probably. I just feel like there's I know it sounds silly with a team that is 26th in the league in WRC plus. There's still just too much of a wealth of other options to really give Keston a shot. So I don't think that we're going to see him. Also, I think it's funny that we were just talking about like how good the vibes are with the Orioles, and it's like you have Keston Hiura, Brewers player, and then the Orioles have Heston Kierstad.
Yes.
Which is like the inverse, like bizarro world universe version of Keston Hiura. Although they're may be similar players. I don't actually know. It's just like the names are very funny to me.
Yes, but I got them immediately backwards as soon as I started mentioning it, because we were just talking about the O's. It's I'm telling you, my brain some days. And then as I was actually about to start recording, I did just see the White Sox acquired Tyler Naquin from the Brewers for cash.
Oh, okay. So. Yeah. I think that's another thing where, like, again, the outfield was so crowded because now you have Sal Frelick is up. You have Weimer, who's basically going to be in center field because he's been incredible defensively. And he does have the power speed combo that, even though he is incredibly frustrating to watch sometimes at the plate because of his plate discipline, he can impact the ball. He runs really, really well. I still like him a lot. And then obviously, like, Yelich is going to be in left field every single day. And then you can have a rotation of kind of pick your poison. You can have Frelick, you can have Tyrone Taylor, you can have Blake Perkins out in right field if you need to. All these different guys who bring different stuff to the table. I think that's just having a wealth of options, and it just makes sense there to get rid of Naquin.
Yeah, it's not a bad pickup either. The White Sox are consistently having outfield issues. I mean, we don't have a team right now. It seems like most of them were probably just suspended. So
yeah, lots of trouble in River City right now for sure.
Oh boy,
it's been a rough one as of late. Lots of weird press between the obviously the Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez fight, and then also the Keenan Middleton article that dropped, the interview with him about like the culture issues within the team and just like the lack of structure and like accountability within the team is rough to see. As a fan, obviously, I can't imagine. I mean, obviously, I think every team in some capacity at one point or another has embarrassed their fans and made them maybe a little bit not, I don't know if it's ashamed is the right word, but just like, come on, guys, really?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a lot of that as of late. It's been been rough to watch.
You know, as we were recording this, so right now it's 2:29. This was 2:14.
Oh,
Lance Lynn chimed in as he saw those comments about the culture problems and said his take was, "I was there a lot longer than Key was. He's not wrong."
Oof. So this has been an ongoing issue. This wasn't just this year.
No, this is, yeah, so, you know, it's great. With that being said, before we really jump into this hot mess, we're going to take a very quick break to pay some bills, but also look super cute if you're watching on YouTube. Okay, we're good. All right, so.
Always cute.
Again, welcome back. We are breaking down this series with the pretty good Brewers and the hot mess that is the Chicago White Sox team at this moment. Usually I start off with pitching. Nothing is listed yet for either team. Definitely not surprising with the White Sox. Again, we just gave most of our pitchers away, and we have nothing left at all. Although Michael Kopech did just have a really great game the other day prior to Tim Anderson getting knocked out.
He did, yes. I did look up actually projected pitching matchups on Fangraphs. So I do have what people think the matchups are going to be. Opening game is supposed to be Burns versus Kopech, which is fun. That's a fun one. Then it's Woodruff and Jesse Schultens.
Oh, yes.
Which is
you guys did just bring Woodruff back up, didn't you?
Yep. Yeah. And then the last game of the series is Freddie Peralta versus Dylan Cease, which is also a fun one. So pretty good like pitching matchups overall. Fun to watch at least. I think that Burns is just going to be Burns and probably be really good.
Yeah.
I hope. Hopefully he gets run support. Fingers crossed. And then I think the biggest thing with Michael Kopech is he going to walk the entire world, or can he rein it in long enough to mow down Brewers hitters? Because while the Brewers hitters do walk a decent amount, they are a bit strikeout prone as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if he can limit the walks, he'll probably be pretty good. If not, giving up free base runners, I feel like the Brewers will be able to capitalize. So that's obviously like that's the thing you always have to watch with Kopech is he going to have the command or not? Woodruff versus Schultens. I'm sorry. That's all I have to say. Like, Jesse Schultens has like a ERA just north of 3 this year. He's been pretty good results wise, looking at all like the underlying data, like his BABIP, which is batting average on balls in play, really, really low. Kind of lucky in that regard. And his FIP, fielding independent pitching, also suggests that he has gotten pretty lucky this year. So I would anticipate that the edge obviously goes to Woodruff there. Mm-hmm. And then Peralta versus Cease should be a fun one, as long as I don't know what it is with Dylan Cease this year. He's really like, you look at his walk rates, they're not that much different than last year. Mm-hmm. He's still striking out just as many people basically as he was in 2022. And the results are so different. He had a lot of contact suppression skills last year that he completely lost. Like, he was tippy top of the league in like hard hit rate, everything like that, barrel rate. You look at his stuff this year, he is like bottom 20% in hard hit rate. It's kind of a bummer. Because I enjoyed Dylan Cease a lot last year. Like, I played in fantasy leagues and had him in a few of them, and it was awesome to have him on my teams. I don't know what it is that is causing him to get hit so hard this year in comparison to last year. Because he was, again, incredible in terms of contact suppression last year, and it just completely fell off the map this year. So I don't know what to think of that. I do think that he'll probably feast on a Brewers offense that's a little bit subpar. Mm-hmm. I think that'll be a pretty low-scoring game for the most part. But all in all, I would probably say that's going to be a pretty fun one to watch. That's the one that I have circled as like the most interesting pitching matchup personally.
Yeah, that one will be good. And you're spot on with Dylan, and I don't think anybody truly knows what has changed. Maybe Zach Hayes can like come on and give us some insight, because that's what he's best at. But yeah, it's been an interesting year in general for White Sox pitching. I mean, Dylan is really hit or miss. Kopech is really hit or miss. Mm-hmm. Lucas started off not great and turned back into like the ace that we kind of knew he was. And then Lance started off terribly and randomly got good, and now they're both gone. So like that doesn't even matter. But yeah, it's just been a weird year for their pitching.
Yeah, it feels like a lost year a little bit.
It does.
For sure. That's hard.
Kind of just have emotionally checked out on this team. Obviously, I'm still covering them, so I have to maintain invested. But man, it is tough right now.
Yeah,
for us to really care these days.
It is not good television. I cannot imagine.
No, I have to like have a palate cleanser type game to kind of also be playing at the same time.
Oh, I wouldn't even watch another baseball game. I would watch something entirely. Like, I'd watch like, I don't know, like Real Housewives, or just something really like trashy.
Yeah.
A different kind of trashy.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably more entertaining if you just watch, like the Kardashians or Drag Race or something to that effect. Because it's been brutal. But with this series, I mean, again, I highly doubt the White Sox are going to really show up and show out. But what are your keys for the Brewers to take this series from them?
Well, something that I noted with like, I look at guys like Andrew Monasterio, Blake Perkins, guys like that. Sal Frelick, since he got called up, these younger guys who are actually putting together really good at bats and walking a bunch. I think that's going to be the key, is like basically eating into those starting pitchers as much as they can to force themselves into that White Sox bullpen. I think is going to be the key. I think it's probably going to happen. And then obviously just continuing to play like really, really stellar defense. I don't think that the Brewers offensively are going to have to be on like the tippy top of their game to win these games. I think that they just need to play clean baseball, limit errors, that's pretty much the extent of it. And then obviously, like I said, just work good at bats against like especially Cease and Kopech, and just try to make them give up free passes.
Yeah, that's fair. But on the kind of flip side, do you have a fear heading into this series?
I mean, Luis Robert.
Yeah.
That's it. Like that's genuinely it.
Yeah.
That's the extent of it. And like if Cease just has, or Cease and Kopech both pop off and have like high ceiling games like they can have where Cease strikes out like 12, which is completely possible against the Brewers. Yeah, and then Kopech flashes of brilliance at times. Not as good this year as he has been, and has been walking. I think he's walking like more than 5 batters per 9 right now. Like he's been it's the worst walk rate of his career. I do know that. So if they have like positive regression games, then I'll be a little bit bummed. And I think those are my biggest fears. And then Luis Robert. That's the extent of it.
I was just talking to our lovely friend Janice. We were together the other night, and I got the notification that Kopech had been throwing a no through 5. This was, again, right before the knockout heard around the world. And we were talking about how, if he can just manage that fastball, he's deadly.
Yeah.
He's great. He doesn't need anything else. If he can throw that fastball, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. And it's nice to see him really getting more of a handle on it this year, because when he does have those flashes of brilliance, it is because he is relying heavily on that fastball and occasionally a changeup. But that's what he needs to do. If he could just listen to myself and Janice, we could be pitching coaches for him.
Ethan Katz, step aside.
Yes, just step aside, Ethan. I can be the hitting coach. Janice can be a pitching coach. We're going to have that team turned around in no time.
Yeah. I mean, I do wonder if there's ever, if Kopech continues to struggle and his walk issues continue, if he does end up, because I know people spoke about him as potentially being like an elite closer.
Yeah.
Too. I'm wondering if that is still an avenue that they end up taking with him at some point, if he continues to struggle as a starter and is a little bit inconsistent, and just like turning that into a microcosm and just like letting him work in relief. Because I mean, his stuff, like you said, the fastball is elite. If he works off 2 pitches, you can do that as a reliever much more reliably than you can as a starter. Because if you don't have 1 pitch as a starter, it's when you only have a couple, it's pretty rough. So I would be interested to see what they're going to do with Kopech moving forward. I anticipate that they'll just continue having him as a starter, but depending on how things go over the next couple of seasons, I could see them transitioning him into a relief role if they have enough starting pitching.
Keyword. Yeah. And he was great, because when he first kind of came back post 2020 season, he hadn't pitched in forever.
Yeah.
And they did kind of put him in more of a relief role, and he did look phenomenal in that relief role. And then they clearly just kind of rushed him. They did not stretch him out enough, and that's why he really has struggled as a starter. But yeah, he is brilliant in a relief role, and I wouldn't be mad at that. So
yeah, he looks really, really good. I mean, the pandemic and injury, everything like that kind of stunted his development quite a bit. He was one of the many people that was affected by the pandemic and like the weirdness surrounding that for like minor leaguers. It was hard. It was really, really hard. There's a lot of guys who kind of fell by the wayside development wise because of that. So super, super duper difficult situation. But yes, he was awesome in a kind of like long relief, bulk relief type role. So I don't know. We'll see what they do with him. I still like Kopech a lot.
Yeah, he's what I kind of want what Raylo would do.
Yes.
Where Raylo could start, Raylo could close. He could be an innings eater in that long relief position. And I think that's where Michael needs to head to next.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Let's see. And then who is the biggest threat on the Brewers right now? Or, I mean, we know Luis Robert Jr. is your biggest fear, but is there like a big threat on this team, or is there something that is a threat to themselves as a team?
A threat to the Brewers?
Yeah, this could be pretty open-ended, however you really want to take that.
So the biggest threat is the offense and getting too aggressive, I would say, and giving too many free outs. That's probably where I'm at on that, is just being too aggressive at the plate. And like, I mean, if you're letting Dylan Cease and Michael Kopech get you out on like 2-3 pitches every single at bat, like I feel like you're not doing your due diligence and actually trying to like work a walk or like work a count against those pitchers. I would say that might be the thing that would ruin the Brewers. I think that in terms of like who the biggest threat for them is, I think it's just the pitching staff. I feel like obviously even like losing Jake Berger, that's one fewer threats that you have in that lineup. I love Jake Berger, by the way.
Yeah.
Adore Jake Berger. It's just the pitching staff in general. I feel like, and just like you get our big three in this series. That's what it comes down to. Like that's a rough draw. It's a really rough draw for an opposing team to face, is getting our three best pitchers, because I would stack them up against any other team's big three in the league.
Sorry, you keep saying big three, and like the gay horoscope girly in me keeps coming out. Very sorry. Yeah, that's what I have for this series. This is kind of the more fun part, because, me thinking about the White Sox right now is super depressing. So I just love to hear everyone else's thoughts on what's going around league-wide. Again, your thoughts on this season overall, and I think I told you, pleasant or terrible surprises, World Series contenders, like whatever you're thinking about with this season, this is just where you just unleash.
So World Series wise, I thought about this a lot, and I feel like obviously I don't think it's going to be anyone from the Central divisions making it to the World Series.
No.
I think that if anyone from the Central divisions makes it to the playoffs and finds themselves in like the NLCS or ALCS, I think it's the Brewers that have the best chance, simply because I think, again, like Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns, Freddie Peralta, if you can win 2 of 3 in those games and build the bridge to get them back again later in the series, I think you're giving yourself a good shot to be able to steal a series from one of these teams that's honestly just better. Personally, where I'm at right now is I think that in the AL, I'm leaning to, like, I would love for the Orioles to win it.
Yeah.
I think I might go with the Texas Rangers to make it from the AL. I feel like that offense is electric. They've been great all year. The pitching has gotten better. Obviously, getting Scherzer helps them some like a breadth of experience there, especially in postseason play for Scherzer, to go along with like everyone else that they have on that pitching staff that have all, I mean, in their own right, been pretty solid this year. And then from the NL, I think the pretty clear like favorite in the NL is Atlanta.
Yeah.
The offense is maybe one of the best I've seen in my lifetime, like from top to bottom, like the strongest lineup offensively. It's absurd. That team's nuts. Also, I get the chance to see Orlando Arcia be just awesome. We get the nice Bofa on that, which is always fantastic. But no, that offense is incredible. They have Max Fried back, who looked amazing in his first outing back from injury. With that rotation at full strength, I think that the bullpen is strong enough. The rotation's good, not great. But that offense is incredible. I anticipate that they're probably going to bury most teams that they play and put up at least 1 10+ run game in every single series, without fail. So I think like it's probably a Atlanta and some AL team. I hope it's Baltimore. I want it to be Baltimore. I think it's going to be Texas.
Yeah, that's kind of where I sit with I mean, Atlanta is the obvious choice, of course, but
yeah,
my heart is telling me that the Orioles will go, but at the same time, my heart is like, but hey, Jacob deGrom could actually still get a ring despite not playing on the team this year.
That's true. That would be cool.
It's like, do I want my birthday triplet to get a ring? Do I want to be happy about the like, it's very tough.
It's such a bummer being like a general baseball fan sometimes, because someone that you love is going to get hurt.
Yes. Yeah, and so do you have any like fun or disappointing surprises? Because this has been a weird season in general for a lot of teams.
I mean, Brewers specific stuff, it's been the rookies have been like very fun in different ways. Like a lot of them have had like walk-off hits. They've done various good and bad things, like have been equally like surprising in a good way, but also disappointing at the same time. I love how much young talent there is on the Brewers right now. It's been great. And just honestly, like across the league, seeing Corbin Carroll, watching him do what he's been doing, all of the guys that have been called up for the Orioles and how great that team's been and how aggressively they've been pushing up younger guys to try to push for the playoffs and obviously the World Series. Seeing the Reds like within the NL Central with Ellie De La Cruz's debut and like all of the younger guys they have on that team, Spencer Steer, obviously Jonathan India, not a rookie anymore, but still a younger guy on that team. There's been a lot to be really, really excited about. I will say one thing that's been a disappointment, obviously, has been Trey Turner, but I've loved how the city of Philadelphia has rallied around him. Like that scene of him hitting the go-ahead homer this past week and the entire crowd cheering wildly for him and him coming for a curtain call after the struggles that he's had was like very nice to see. Like if there's one thing that I love, it's seeing a city rally around a struggling player instead of just like relentlessly booing him.
Yeah.
So I love the fans of Philly for that. But overall, it's just been, I mean, it's been a fun season across the board. I feel like obviously the one disappointing thing, and I'm sorry to my former podcast co-host, Chris Webber, the Mets have been, can I swear on this podcast?
Yes, you can.
They have been dog shit.
Yes.
They have been so bad. And I feel so bad because there's so much there that should be working. And like Uncle Stevie is going to unload as much salary as he can. And then he's going to buy a bunch of players again. It's going to happen. I don't know. Are they going to be in on Shohei? Yes, probably. I don't think he's going to go there. I think people are going to be disappointed by that. That's my question for you is where do you think Shohei is going to end up next season? Do you think he resigns? Do you think he goes somewhere else?
See, that's the thing. Like, where else could he go? Because again, Atlanta doesn't need him. They're fine on their own. Like, I'm trying to think of like teams that are good and could provide him, you know, a chance at actually making the playoffs and doing something impactful.
Yeah.
And I just can't think of like where he would truly fit in. I feel like he's just gonna stay with the Angels.
I feel like ideally the best place for him to go, staying in the division, would be to the Mariners.
Yeah.
I think that's probably because they have enough, like a lot of their guys that they have right now, like is like younger talent that are still in like arbitration or pre-arb deals. And they can probably figure it out payroll flexibility wise, a way to deal for Shohei. And also, this is the thing too that you have to think about with Shohei. It's going to be a record breaking contract if you sign him. Pairing him and Julio up for like a buttload of years sounds incredible.
That would be
fun.
Like
that's going to be a very fun team. Also, something that I don't hear that many people talk about is like when you watch an Angels game, you see how many advertisements there are for Japanese companies in the stadium itself. The ad revenue that you will get over that time from companies from Japan will also be a way to like kind of return that investment too, beyond obviously him being literally the best baseball player we will ever see in our entire lives.
Yeah.
Like the ticket sales are going to be through the roof. The ad deals that you're going to get from companies that would not advertise at any other stadium in the league. There's so much to love about that. And I think that because I believe Ichiro is still a special advisor for the Mariners, I feel like he will probably be doing a lot of legwork to get Shohei to at least entertain the idea of signing in Seattle during the offseason. But Yeah, I think fun wise, I think that would be my favorite place for him to go. I don't want to see him go to Atlanta because I have friends who are Atlanta fans, and genuinely they are already insufferable.
Yes.
I love them to death. They're the worst, absolute worst. I don't need that. I don't need them to have more ammunition. I
Also,
don't.
didn't Shohei recently talk about how much he loved Seattle?
There was like an interview, or not an interview. It was like a media day. It might have been for the All-Star game.
Yeah, I think
There was the All-Star Day media game where like someone like, so you're gonna sign here, and he just like looked at him, was just like smiled, and was like,
yeah,
maybe.
So,
which he could just be playing coy about like anyone, like any team that they propose in that situation. But I feel like he probably wants to stay on the West Coast.
Yeah,
I think most realistically, Dodgers, Mariners are the two most likely teams that he signs with if it's not re-signing with the Angels. But yeah,
I don't want to say that you heard it here first, but just remember this podcast when he ultimately signs with the Mariners next season.
It's going to happen. And I will be so. I mean, we need a win for Mikey Ahedo after he lost Paul Sewald.
Yes.
Mikey needs this, please, for Mikey.
I saw on Twitter he put no longer a Mariners fan. Mikey, no.
Oh, buddy.
So yes, we do need a win for Mikey. We love Mikey. He's been on here before, so people are familiar.
He's a good boy.
So yes, let's give him a win so that we don't have to make him into a Diamondbacks fan. We don't want that. But yeah, so Jordan and I are going to manifest Ohtani to the Mariners.
Yes.
And then we can get in all of your faces next year when he is in fact a Mariner and be like, we were right this entire time.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. Well, that's good. So obviously, please let us know where we can find you. I know social media kind of sucks these days, but you know, while things are still actually alive on the internet.
Oh gosh, on the former but still in my heart Bird app, and on most things, I am at Bunt Singles, BUNTSINGLES. You can find me there. It is surprisingly not a dating app for baseball fans. But just simply my handles on most things. You can find me there. If you want to look at or listen to any of the podcasts that I did previously, obviously there's a whole catalog of stuff that isn't even evergreen content. Feel free to, if you just want to hear more of my voice, you can listen to that. It's In the Deep, formerly of the Pitcher List Podcast Network, and then a couple articles on Pitcher List. I might splash around and write some occasional things here or there, depending on if the mood strikes. But yeah, pretty much just if you want to see me fire off tweets, or I'm also on Blue Sky if you're on there too. It's also Bunt Singles there as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
If I just bully you a little bit more to actually write things, because there are a few I will bully, and you have been one of them in the past.
There is nothing that works better on me than bullying. Shaming me is the best way to get me to do pretty much anything. So
yeah, you and Tommy Barbie on Southside Sox, I will bully you too. Into oblivion if it means either one of you will actually write things. So it works too. Both of you have done it. I've bullied you and you did. So appreciate it. Jordan was also my onboarding buddy. He demanded
yes
list. So
yes, I shepherded you in your early days.
Yes, he went to Nick and said, listen,
she's mine.
Don't give me Crystal.
You don't understand, Nick. This one, she's mine. She comes with me. Yeah.
We're a package deal together. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. I would say best of luck, but I don't really think that the Brewers need it.
Thank you.
You guys are competent. Says a lot about your nicely run organization. So yeah, again, thank you for coming on and talking about the Brewers.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.